Welcome to One Oar Boat.
Welcome back to One Oar Boat. This is Season 1, Episode 5 with our special guest, Dan, owner-operator of Grip Brothers Guitars. Dan, just real quick, if you could, just jump in. Tell us a little bit about your project, what's going on, and what's new.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, so I'm a guy who builds guitars that I personally want to see and play out of my sheds out in my backyard. Typically, I kind of like making them as if they're quivers, pieces in a quiver, so they're not intended to do everything, so they're typically single pickup guitars that are more geared to do stuff like the Young Brothers or maybe Billy Gibbons would have done.
Okay.
But personally, when I'm playing on my own, I tend to play a lot of stuff that's a little mellower, and especially with the P90 setup, super fun to play like old Ray Charles and stuff. Anyhow, so I just like building guitars, and I do it to the best of my abilities in the most dilapidated conditions, I think, of any builder I've seen on Instagram, at least.
I like the way you said you build them like a quiver, and for those people who don't surf, that's a surfing reference. He's building longboards, shortboards, and fishes. And so you could do a lot of different things on a lot of different settings. So if you didn't get it, now you got it. Dude, I like the whole stripped down, streamlined. If one more bolt falls off, it's not going to play. How did you come to that?
Necessity is the mother of invention. I guess being real, the first real influence on guitar I had was probably Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah.
And so as an 11-year-old, I wanted to build one of those, right? He just had, and I guess, also, now I think about it, the first actual guitar I had was an old Ibanez Roadstar 2 that was a single humbucker design. And so for a long time, that was kind of all I played. Now, I guess I hadn't even thought of this, but for probably 1983 to 1990, when I bought a 70-ish, 4-ish Les Paul Custom, for like $500. All I played was a guitar with one pickup. And I guess, when I was trying to play the metal arpeggios like in Dawkins or something like that, or the quiet parts, I would just turn it down, but it never occurred to me to have a nicer sounding pickup. And those things, the pickup was awful. So
what do you mean bridge pickup? Yeah.
Well, the Ibanez ones were really bad. Like back then, at least to my ears, they were. My buddy's got one. He put a different pickup in it. I still don't like it. But point is, as a kid, the main thing I played was like basically an Ibanez kind of version of like some of the guitars I make, because of the time Eddie Van Halen was the rage and everybody wanted single pickup guitars, I guess, and copying him. Fast forward to like 2021. When was it? What year? It was October? I can't remember when he died.
Oh, I don't know.
Years later. But I had completely forgotten I ever liked Van Halen. But when I found out he died, I was taken back to being 11 or 12. And all of a sudden, I was sad for no reason. And wait, why do I care about this? This guy's a kook. Turned out, no, he's great. And I realized, plugged in back to my 11, 12-year-old self, decided I wanted to build the guitars that I thought about building when I was a kid. The next thing you know, I built a tribute guitar naively thinking I'd give it to Wolfgang, not even understanding enough at the age of like 49-ish that he had his own guitar company. He doesn't need my stinking guitar.
It's funny that you say that because there is a very major guitar company out there. They got their start by sending a guitar or two to Carlos Santana. And he was like, oh yeah. And so if you know what his signature guitar is, you know who I'm talking about. I don't want to get too deep into that, but that was their thing. They made really good guitars. They didn't have a big name and they sent it off. And this dude was like, I'm in love with your guitar. So it works if you got the money to do it.
Well, I didn't, initially. I'd read that, I want to say the guy, Mr. Charvel, who owned the shop where Ed bought his stuff, said he didn't seem to have tools because the pickup was nailed in and, he'd routed out room for humbucker with a chisel. And so when I initially thought about it, I was thinking, this in 2020-ish is the most valuable guitar electric-wise probably on the planet. It was just, I think, it was in the New York Met or something like that. And I was thinking that, I want to build a guitar. I can't be much worse than an 18-year-old Eddie Van Halen at building guitars. So I felt like if he could do it, let's just go and channel that and imagine like I'm still that kid who wants to do it. And I just wasn't worried about messing up. And so that was the simplest thing to do. And it just went from there. But I really found, years ago I had a Bernie Les Paul Jr. copy. I shouldn't use those words, but a Bernie copy of a single cut. And I'd find when I go to jam sessions, I'd pick that up and play that the whole time and leave my guitar with 2 humbuckers, I'll just say that, alone. And I found that I would just play with the P90 and just change the tone. So for a lot of my life, as the more I think about it, I've used a 1 pickup setup.
I think it's funny that there was a time in the late 90s and the early 2000s that you would go to Guitar Center or you'd be looking on Sweetwater and the big brands were coming out with new guitars with only 1 pickup. And everyone was like, no, what are they doing? This is crap, But I think we've all had a guitar with 1 pickup. And I've always wanted a Telecaster with a humbucker, like a big P90, big fat soap style pickup. And the stuff you're doing is great. I love the look of it, and the reviews are just off the charts, man.
Well, that's really nice. It's a hold my breath when I make each one and hope it comes out. Steep learning curve. But the one that's probably gotten the most attention and been out in the world and toured the most was the number 5th guitar I had built. Number 5, number 5th, but the 5th guitar I built. Yeah, that's, I did not have actual tools that a luthier would have. I'm by no means a luthier. I would never call myself that, and I have zero interest in it. But I like to play guitars, and I like to make them in a way that's fun for me to play, that hopefully is fun for others. It's not really going for a vintage vibe. It's going for a vibe that makes you want to pick it up and do something with it. I'm not trying to make copies of anything. It happens to be that because these are kits, these are this is what I can do. But, they're not supposed to look like it's from 1959. It's supposed to look like some weird guitar you found at a pawn shop and you're like, man, I just want to play that. I don't know why, but I want to pick that up and make it go.
Oh, well, you're hitting that right on the head.
I think I read that somewhere earlier today, the kind of guitar you want to find at a pawn shop.
Yeah, that was my tagline for a while. But I was always finding myself in certain guitar stores that are larger, trying to spend money, because let's say me and my girl had been in a fight or something, and being so thoroughly dismayed by everything I found, and even the $2,600 guitars were awful in my opinion. Now, of course, maybe nobody had time to set them up properly in a store like that. But I grew up going to small guitar stores, and you wouldn't pay an exorbitant amount of money for a guitar that played like a budget guitar.
That's funny you say that. I had a $199 Fire Engine Red Epiphone Telecaster, and Glenn has played this guitar, and we had the guy. I was lucky enough to be living in Memphis, and the guy who was the guitar tech for the Grand Ole Opry was the guitar tech at Guitar Center, and something broke, and I took it in there, and that guy said, "Let me do a setup on this while I'm at it." And I'm like, "Dude, here's an extra $50." It played like any $2,000 guitar I'd ever picked up. It was beautiful.
In my opinion, I've learned you can take anything and make it play really good if you go about it in the right way. And that might be a bad thing to say, but the guitar you're looking at is one I kept for myself because the kid had a problem. And so oftentimes if you see me keep them for myself, it's because I had to do something else for it. And so this is one that I can't remember what I worked around on it. But these kits, if you were to buy them off the shelf, I won't mention where I'm getting these particular ones from. The new ones I'm using are much different. But if you didn't have tools, you would really have a hard time making anything playable. But with some practice, you can make these things great. And the one that's gotten the reviews you're referring to, the guy in Sweden, Alex, the one he did, that was the exact same kit, and he really likes it. So to your point, you could take a $200 guitar and make it fantastic by attending to the frets, attending to electronics, adjusting, basic stuff that a lot of people could do.
I think a lot of people can do it, but the learning curve is scary. I remember, I started playing guitar at 14. Up until I was in my late 20s, I was like, don't mess with the guitar. You will steal its mojo. There's something about, doing more than changing the strings. And I remember I had a little Gibson Les Paul Special, and I took all the strings off, and the tailpiece fell off because there was no more strings on it. And I just freaked out, and I called one of my buddies on the phone, and I was like, what do I do? And he's like, put the strings back on, bro. You're fine. But there's definitely a whole crew of people out there that if you do more than change the strings, you're messing with the mojo.
That was me until I'd say 2013, when I had really gotten deep into what they refer to as lawsuit guitars coming out of Japan, like by Bernie and Greco specifically.
Yeah.
And I had gotten this Bernie Supergrade, which is a copy of a really well-known guitar, like almost very close to exact replica, and it was phenomenal. And then as the season changed, it played awful. The strings were way off. I was like, what is going on here? And I was new to Virginia, where I had maybe larger temperature changes. And I just read somewhere, check the truss rod. So with nothing more than an Allen wrench, I messed with it, and it played fantastic. And I was like, wow, that's all it took? And I was, had been playing 20-something years, maybe 30 years by that point. Same exact mindset. I can't touch this.
Yeah, dude.
Oh, the intonation's too hard. Don't mess with the intonation. It'll ruin the guitar.
I remember my first time ever touching a truss rod, and I was a little terrified and was pretty sure I was going to snap the neck in half. And the way you get good at that is start by going in the wrong direction and find out what you don't want and then go the other way.
Dude, I don't know. I mean, me and Glenn were in a band, and we were a lot of times in foreign countries or not near the people we trusted, and we lived and died by Google. And some of that information out there is just false. I'm just going to tell you right now, don't use white glue on your guitar. That is a no-no. Elmer's glue is bad. There's a lot of things you have to learn by what we would call trial by fire.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, dude. So the kind of bands that are playing this guitar, do they run the whole gambit? Do they start at country and end at punk rock?
Probably. I would. I don't. I mean, I know of. I'm trying to think here. Yeah, I know. It's actually a fair statement with the two individuals I'm thinking of specifically. More the guys who play them are typically playing more rock type stuff. But there's a really talented guy named Ricky Joseph who uses them for recording. He actually picked up like 3 of them at once one day, and a couple for his friends. Side note, I've had more than one person buy one for a buddy.
That's cool.
Which is, like, to me, the highest honor you could get. Like, this person's loved his guitar so much, he now wants to show his buddy, so he's buying one for his buddy.
That's awesome.
So that's pretty cool. So, he does some really good country modern stuff. I'd hate to admit how out of touch I am, but, I imagine a lot of different type people play them. But, simply going to draw on people who have similar mindsets and tastes, I think a lot of people are towards the louder rock side of things.
Tell me, what kind of music do you listen to, man?
Runs the gamut.
Like if I were to pick up your iPod today.
Okay. Yeah, so Spotify informed me. And this is what was on most. It's year in rap. Now, I will not state that these are my favorite things, but my relationship with music is kind of odd, so I listen to stuff that I listen to. Point is, Skinner's Second Helping, Highway to Hell, Mecco Plays Star Wars, Althea and Donna, and what was the 5th? It was something weird. Maybe Grazing in the Grass by Hugh Masekela.
Nice.
But today I was listening to Hound Dog Taylor. And I was telling the other day, I have this weird love of this really old disco band that did Star Wars and other soundtracks from like when I was a little kid. So that's probably the thing throughout my life I've listened to more than anything since like 1978. But yesterday where I really got into the Ramones, fell down an early Ramones hole. Rock and roll wise, ZZ Top, old Bon Scott era AC/DC, first 3 Ramones records with Tommy. Those are my jams, rock and roll wise.
Nice.
Yeah, I think it's funny you said Spotify told me, and I guess Spotify Wrapped just came out, and everybody's talking about that, and it's a huge thing on the Instagram right now. everybody's sharing their stats, which I did not do. But
It's corny.
it
And I'll
is
just
kind
say
of
this.
corny, and I think those Spotify hit on something where like they could get a lot of traction, and people who aren't
Yeah.
using Spotify will be like, I want to do that for next year. So I get what they did, and it's pretty awesome.
Oh, totally. It's
It
smart.
blows my mind how many people are using Spotify these days.
Oh,
That
dude,
service blew up.
yes.
Yeah, it's kind of bad for artists who are doing well. It's probably, I'm guessing it's a little better for artists that would not get discovered any other
Yep.
way.
I just think it's a really, really cool way to get your single out there. If you're just recording in your garage, you get a single out there. You can promote it on the other social media platforms. You never know who's going to listen to that single and call you on the phone. And
Right.
it's so much better than it is not better than other streaming platforms like Pandora, or I'm not trying to say that.
I don't know.
What I'm saying is there's some web-based stuff that it's better than.
Yeah, and see, I looked up, I subscribed to the Apple thing, and I look up and they're playing me the same 30 songs every week. And I'm tired of hearing, I won't name the band, but I'm tired of I used to like them, and then Apple overplayed it. And so Spotify has a better algorithm.
Well, that's what I was going to get at, is that it said I listened to 57 genres of music over the year.
Nice.
And so that's a genre week. And I could say that's probably accurate. But then when it showed me the albums I've played over, like continuously, I listened to 3 bands. And that's
Which are?
funny. The Black Keys, the White Stripes, and Guster. So I mean, so it's one that's kind of emo-y. It stands alone. It's like a folky. I don't even know how to. But the other 2 are stripped down. It's not quite punk. It's not quite the blues. It's the Black Keys are what they are. White Stripes.
My
are what they
3
are.
this week are Fleetwood Mac, the Dead South, and the Smile.
I love the Dead South.
The Dead South is pretty great. And so, yeah, but I mean, what I'm listening to this week, I wouldn't call it my favorite music, but it's what I need for this week.
This morning, I something popped up on my Spotify. It said Legends. And so I hit it. I was like, what are legends? Totally expecting to hear like Paul McCartney and Neil Young, stuff like that. And it was a great mix of Social Distortion, U2. It was just this crazy mishmash of things I would listen to. Duran Duran was on there. I'm like, holy moly. It was like listening to the radio, and I really enjoyed that because you, like Glenn was saying, you just don't normally get that.
Yeah.
Not from these streaming services.
If I had to choose one anytime genre I could listen to, it's early 60s, like Toots and the Maytals or Desmond Decker.
That's deep.
Paragons, stuff like that. And it's because it makes me feel like I'm in the islands in a pretty place. And it just makes me upbeat. I like the lo-fi sound, and I like feeling like I'm somewhere cool. And so, I mean, that's my go-to when I just need anything. But, a lot of times rock music's just not in my interest. So I'm listening to Rhapsody in Blue or Boston Pops. If I had to choose one all-time favorite album, it'd be Paul's Boutique.
Yeah,
and if I had to choose
Beastie
one all-time
Boys.
favorite artist, it'd be Louis Armstrong.
Yeah. Dude, that's crazy that you went to to the Beastie Boys.
It's just that album.
I just jump between genres. And the other day I was telling one of my friends, I spent a whole day with the Smiths and Morrissey. And then a few days later, I spent a whole day on ska. It was just, Toots and some other bands, and even a little Clash thrown in there because of their bass guy. And then
they're great.
And then one day it was just punk rock, straight up, like skater punk from back when The Faction and 7 Seconds were big,
Well, it speaks the difference between listening to music when you're a young person and what you're trying to do is carve out an identity for yourself and act like somehow what you listen to means something about who you are specifically. And then you get past the point where that has anything to do with relevance for your identity. Like what I listen to means nothing. It's just what makes me happy in any given moment. So, we're kind of probably all at the same point where that's what it's about. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care what anybody thinks of what I listen to, but I certainly care about how it makes me feel.
Yes.
So,
yes.
One day you want to hear one thing, one day you want, and I think that's just nice to get out of that self-conscious phase.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to me, the key to music I like is a lack of self-consciousness. I like stuff that does not really care what it looks like.
Yeah, I was yesterday driving. I had to drive a little bit longer than I wanted to, maybe 30 or 40 minutes. Pink Floyd came on, and I was just like, I immediately changed my Spotify to Pink Floyd radio for the rest of the drive. And I was like, I never listened to Pink Floyd.
Oh, man.
But I was like, dude, these guys can play. And it's not like I say that like, oh, I hate them. It's not. They don't fall into the realm of something I think about. I just don't think about Pink Floyd,
I do.
except when his guitar was up for auction.
I give myself Pink Floyd therapy like once a month, where I'll just go straight through on a couple albums.
Dude, it was amazing.
Yep.
So, are you guys more into like the Syd Barrett era or the era after his
after his demise?
Okay.
Yeah, I'd agree.
What's that?
I would agree.
Yeah,
we're more the commercial version of Pink Floyd.
Yeah, totally.
I think.
Yeah, I'm not into much of it. He's got some stuff that's brilliant, and it's just a little too out there for me. Have you listened to David Bowie's Pinups album?
I can't say that I've listened to that album, but I'm familiar with it.
It's his band at the time, which I want to say Mick Ronson was in, doing covers in a very loud format of 60s kind of English hipster scene stuff, one of which is Syd Barrett's See Emily Play, and it's so good.
Oh, wow. That would probably be crazy. Have you seen where David Bowie was Cher and her husband, and I can't think of her husband's name.
Sonny.
Bono? Or Sonny?
Sonny Bono. So Cher and Sonny had a comedy talk show in the 60s, 70s. I don't know.
It was a variety show, totally.
Yeah, like just like the Osmonds.
Huge.
Just like the Osmonds. And here is David Bowie singing with Cher on stage. And it just came across my feed one day, and I was like,
yep.
Dude, he looked totally uncomfortable being on that stage with her. But two, she fancied him. You could look at her. When she looked at him, it wasn't like, oh, you're a great singer. It was like, oh, I like you. And you could see it. It was awesome.
He's a funny, charismatic dude, he was, but he seemed like he would be a really fun person to be around. He seemed hilarious.
I think it would have been really neat to just spend in SoCal, Pacific Coast, just hanging out for the weekend, maybe like at the Gas Lamp District, going from bar to bar, listening to bands. He'd probably be a good guy to do that with.
Yeah. I'd let him kick it with me.
Yeah. Kick it old school.
Hey, so I see these surfboards. Where is this? Hey,
that's my shed. This is where I'm sitting right now. I'm on the other side of that window.
I mean, like, where in the world?
This is literally where the guitars get built. Tiny, but the boards are there because I needed to make space to set up some more stuff in the other shed, and they had nowhere else they could go. And they are such bad. The one on the right was a gift from a friend of mine who'd kind of worn it out, and I used it as a river boat skiing.
Oh yeah.
Vessel for 20 years, and it's been broken. The stringer broke in the 90s. I used it till about 10 years ago. And the other one my friend made for me, and it was great until I waterlogged it. So they're both in such bad condition, it doesn't matter if they're inside or out.
This picture totally reminds me of the way I was in high school. You could walk up to any of my friends' back doors or their garages, and you were ready to go surfing right now. Skateboards stayed in the house, but surfboards you could find outside. If your board was in the shop, it was just kind of known. If the waves were up, your board might be missing if you left it out back.
Yeah.
And this is
I love both of them. And I rode the waterlogged one on the left for 10 years after it waterlogged. It wasn't until I let my nephew borrow it a couple summers ago. I said, yeah, check my board out. It's great. And he rode it, and he was referred to it as a refrigerator, and demanded he give it back to me within 5-10 minutes after a wave.
They get so
And
heavy.
He said, "You've been riding this?" I'm like, "Yes, this is my." He's like, "I don't know how you've been riding this." And then I realized my next session on their $5 Walmart foam board was a much better session than I'd had in a long. It turned way better than the one on the left because it wasn't waterlogged. So it was challenging when it was new. For the first 10 years, it was amazing.
Oh my gosh. I taught my son how to surf on one of those paddle boards, the stand-up paddle board.
That's great.
Was it inflatable?
It was like No, it was the foam core, like rigid bottom, foam top.
Yeah, they're crazy.
It was so heavy, but he could stand up every single time, but he wasn't heavy enough to really get a turn out of it. I was like, there's no place in my world for prefab boards until you have a 12-year-old, and then they're perfect.
Well, think about the potential benefit in learning. Instead of having to go through the awkward part of building up the body strength to paddle into something and then get through that motion, you could start by paddling into a wave and get the standing part and then grow into the actual takeoff on a real board.
Dude, you're absolutely correct.
I haven't done that, but when I've seen people out there, it's occurred to me, man, that would have been a cool way to learn as a kid with, you just paddle into a wave and you're automatically riding.
Well, I lived in Hawaii, and Glenn's been to Hawaii with us a couple times.
Oh, yeah.
And when you go out to Waikiki, it's the perfect knee-to-waist wave every single day of your life.
Yep.
And all the tourists get the longboard. They get 11, 12-foot board.
Oh, yeah.
and that's how they learn. And that's exactly what they get, the board in motion, and then they stand up. And that's probably the most they'll ever surf the rest of their life. If you get out there early on the morning on a Saturday or Sunday, it's all the locals with their kids teaching them how to surf.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how they learn.
Yeah, I know that break. When I went back to visit as a tourist, that was one of the few places I rode.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, because visiting there and having lived there for almost a decade, I knew the culture that being a tourist, it was not going to work out to just show up at some local break and try to start looking for waves.
Nah,
so I felt like, Waikiki, it's the place to be. And you know what? The reef still didn't feel very good when I bumped into it with my knee duck diving.
Draws blood.
Oh my gosh! Well, that little break right beyond the break, there's a breakwater at Waikiki, and if you go beyond that, you're looking kind of back across the land at the zoo. There's that little break right. It's the best boogie boarding spot on the whole island, and I mean, you got to fight for your place in the lineup with all the little KKs, but they. I
remember it.
Once you get a wave there, that's.
Because you're covered in sand, and then it's in the water, but it's not even sand. It's like
right
micro shells. It's brutal,
dude. I know that you have somewhere you've got to be, so I don't want to hold you up. I am just so excited to have had you on our show, man.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate it, guys. It's nice seeing a view of my shed. It's
Yeah, dude, the shed looks great.
Like.
And I just want to put the invitation out there. We're a phone call or a text message away. I know you got some big plans over the next 6 months to a year, things that are happening that we're really not going to discuss now because they're still in the making. As they're happening, bro, if you want to come on and talk about it, or you want me to come on your show and talk about it, whatever you want to do, man, just let us know.
Man, I'm 100% game. You're going to hear from me.
Awesome.
Yes, sir. Guys,
hey,
it's been great to meet you, man.
Thank y'all. Be good, man.
Take care.
Before we go, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast if you haven't already. And if you found value in what we shared today, please consider leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to us, and it helps others discover the show too. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach out to us on social media or through our website.